I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Nice to see you again. Thanks for stopping by. Let's get to another set of questions. This batch follows up on some of my answers from the last set of questions where I gave examples of people in the public sphere that are atheists that I consider assholes. So a couple people had some follow-up questions to that. Let's see, Shamahara asks, could I please elaborate on what I don't agree with when it comes to Dawkins, Hitchens, and Harris? And all three of them I have different issues with. Sam Harris, right off the bat, is very politically conservative. He and I are very diametrically opposed when it comes to politics. So I tend to have a conflict with his views and the way he presents things when it comes to the political side of things, though not necessarily the atheist side of things. When he discusses atheism in general, except for when he gets particularly hateful when it comes to Islam, when it comes to speaking about atheism in general, I generally like his way of presenting himself. So I don't have an issue with him as an asshole atheist, and I think I mentioned that in the previous one. Hitchens, on the other hand, I also 50% agree, disagree when it came to him politics-wise, but he was very insulting to people, I believe, who were religious, as is Dawkins at times. They can both be very arrogant in their presentation, and that can be very off-putting to people. I think it's completely possible to believe that something is stupid, like religion in general. You can say religion is stupid, but you don't necessarily have to go that extra level of saying the religious person is stupid. You can say that the thing they believe is stupid, but you don't necessarily have to go so far as to say that the person, the individual, is stupid. And that's what it seems both Hitchens and Dawkins do very frequently. They tend to insult the individuals as opposed to just have an issue with the religion itself. That's my problem with them. But when it comes to their atheism and the way they express their atheism and the way they defend atheism, I don't have any issue with it at all. Distortion Head 37 asks, what do I think about the Atheism Plus crowd? Atheism Plus is a new kind of sub-movement in the atheist community that is focused on humanism and fighting bigotry, specifically sexism, in the atheist community. And instead of just having a general goal of promoting atheism, it also is looking at activism in terms of promoting humanism and civil rights in general. So it's more specific. It's not just atheism, it's atheism plus. Now, I have a problem with groups in general. I tend to not like to join groups because then you have to sign on to their entire package, which is why I'm not really into any of the black atheist groups, or in this case, Atheism Plus, though I support both of them. It's just joining into that kind of thing just isn't my kind of thing, because then you get the baggage that they bring with them. Atheism Plus is a response to a disturbing level of sexist incidents that seem to have gone on in the atheist community. It's a disturbing fact that sexism, racism, bigotry in general isn't something that is completely owned by the religious community. It permeates everything. So those who are involved in the atheist community have decided to join together to try to combat the threads of sexism and bigotry within the atheist community. A lot of people think, oh, it's just a bunch of feminists trying to take over the atheist movement, but the fact is there is a trend, or at least there seems to be a trend of sexism in the atheist community. So it is worthy of combating. Oftentimes people in the atheist community are so focused on promoting atheism and combating theocracy, combating the imposition of religion on everyone else, that they ignore the fact that these things do occur. Sexism, bigotry do occur on a regular basis that have nothing to do with atheism. So when there are incidents of sexism in the atheist community, they diminish it because they don't want to deal with that. They want to focus on the atheist part of things and the fighting of religion. They see their fight against religion as a more important battle than the fight against sexism or homophobia or racism. And so they combat that, and many people feel that in not directly confronting sexism and bigotry within the atheist community, you are allowing it to prosper. I hope they're able to get the conversation going so people can reflect on the fact that bigotry shows its face in all forms, and just combating it in terms of religion is not the only time you need to battle it. You need to battle it wherever you find it. Rick from Facebook asks, hypothetically speaking, what does an atheist do when in a courtroom and is asked to swear in the Bible? Have I ever found myself in a situation like that? Generally, Bibles aren't used in courtrooms anymore. I think it might be up to the judge whether or not that's something they do, but in general, it's understood that that can cause a conflict, so it's not done. When swearing in during a court procedure, an individual has the option of either swearing in the traditional, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I'm not quite sure, so help me God, happens anymore. Or they can also affirm that they will be honest in their testimony, and that doesn't involve any acknowledgement of a deity whatsoever. So they have that option, and I think that is generally what happens more frequently now than try to put the so help me God in there. It just causes less problems. Have I ever found myself in a situation like that? Generally, I have. In the past, I've had federal jobs. Most recently, I did some time with the time with the census, which was a federal gig, and you had to swear in, you had to swear to defend the Constitution and all of that, and you had to write an oath, and you had to say the Pledge of Allegiance and all that. On the paperwork, when you sign that you are going to be forthright and defend the Constitution, it says there, "So help me God," on the forms that you have to sign, and you have to sign them if you're going to have the job. What they also allow you to do is to amend those signatures. So when I got that paperwork, I put a single line through the phrase "So help me God" and initialed it, and then I signed the paper. Turned it into the supervisors, and they looked at it, and they're used to that type of thing. So they looked at it, saw it, kind of acknowledged it with a nod, put it with the paperwork, no problem whatsoever. It's very valid for me to cross that out, initial it to say that I'm the one that crossed it out, and then sign the paperwork. And then, of course, we also had to say the Pledge of Allegiance when we've had our first day on the job. And everyone stood there, would put their hand up, and they say the entire Pledge of Allegiance. And when it gets to the part of one nation under God, I put my hand down. And then when it was done, I put it back up, and people noticed it. And that is just something that happens, and they're aware of it, and they understand it, and they don't have a problem with it. And the reason I did this wasn't to be some type of rebel, to somehow stand out and say, this is my opinion. The fact is, telling the truth is something that is very important to me. My word is my bond. So if I were to sign papers saying that I swear to tell the truth and I will do this, so help me God, as far as I'm concerned, I would be lying if I signed that, because I don't believe that in that God's existence, and so signing it is false. And right off the bat, I would be starting off as a liar. So in order to hold my own integrity, not to make some big political statement, I got rid of the "so help me God" in there. Also with the oath, if you're going to have me say the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to remove the "one nation under God," because that is not something that I am willing to defend. I don't pledge my allegiance to a nation under God because I don't believe a nation under God exists. And if you want me to be truthful, you have to let me get rid of it. Or you would basically be asking me to lie. And I don't think you want me lying. He goes on and asks, what would I think life would be like in America if we became a 90% secular nation? The pros and cons of atheism. If we became a 90% secular nation, it would all depend on how we became that way. If we came about it suddenly, through some type of shock, alien spacecraft comes down, something that stuns the people and makes them discard their religion, I think the effect would be pretty bad. Given that for a lot of people, the rug would be pulled out from under them. Their moral compasses would be gone, and they would be lost. And lost people are dangerous people. The last thing I wanted, a bunch of people going around going, why is there good in the world? Why should I do anything if there's no God? And then having them just be, confused. It would be disastrous. But if 90% secularism came about through a slow, natural process, which is what it's doing right now, that is, more and more people are discarding the religious views They are raising their children with less religious views. The upcoming generations are less and less attached to religious dogma than the previous ones. And so that percentage of secular people, non-believing people, is going to grow in a generational fashion. If that's how the United States becomes 90% secular, I don't think there'll be any negative ramifications to that at all. Because they will still have the same moral traditions that they always had. They just won't have the metaphysical baggage to go along with it. The funny thing about asking about the pros and cons of atheism is that the pros of atheism and the cons of atheism are very much the same. Atheism doesn't bring anything to the table. Atheism just says that a person doesn't believe in a God. If you know someone's an atheist, what do you know about them morally? What do you know about them politically? What do you know about their beliefs? You don't know anything about them. All you know is that whatever their beliefs are, they don't come from a deity. That's all you know. Atheism doesn't tell you what that person's moral, political, whatever compass is. Atheism doesn't bring anything to the table that way. So in many ways, that can be considered a pro. There's no baggage with atheism that says that you need to discriminate against someone else because they don't have the same God as you. They don't worship the same way as you. They're not descended from the same people as you. There is nothing about atheism that brings that additional baggage to it. So that, in my mind, is a tremendous pro. But at the same time, since atheism doesn't bring anything with it, it puts the burden of morality on the individual. And if that person is a strong individual, a moral individual, then they will take up that mantle themselves and they will go forward as a moral individual. But if they are not a moral individual and they need some type of outside rails to put them on a moral path, atheism isn't going to give that to them. And so you could see that as a negative, because atheism doesn't force anyone at all, or threaten anyone at all, or promise anyone at all any type of benefit or punishment. It just is. So it's up to the individual. And for many people, that is a negative because they don't have the ability to guide themselves personally. Now, we have society in general, hopefully, picking up the slack, telling people if you do wrong, you're going to get punished. If you do good, hey, maybe you'll get something out of it. But if they don't have that themselves, atheism doesn't help them. So, for me, atheism's pros and atheism's cons are kind of the same thing. It leaves it to the individual and that individual's strengths or weaknesses. And lastly, before we close out, we have Capone's, who asks about the music that I play during my intros and my outros, especially in my older videos that I don't currently use anymore. He's asked me about this before, and I told him I would get him the music, and I didn't. So he wants to know about the music and where can he get it. Well, the fact is that music only exists pretty much here. These old mixtapes, old cassette tapes from the mid-90s. My old friend and business partner, Mr. Gates, used to be Dark Hater, made these mixtapes back in the mid-90s, and I have one of the few copies of them. And so what I've done is I've converted the music into digital, and I've been using it for my intro and outro music. These were done when he was going by the artistic name of Iceberg Slick. The two mixtapes are the Slick Statistic Volumes 1 and 2. They're a great mix of original beats, sound effects, movie edits, TV show clips. The kind of thing that's really common now, but in the mid-90s, no one was really doing it. He was on the cutting edge of that, and so he's got some really good stuff. So I tend to use those because I know no one else has them. But I will be putting them up on my website at the link below. Only a few of them right now. After I discuss it with him, we're going to get more up on his Haterazzi site and in the music section there, and you can enjoy more original beats from the late Iceberg Slick, now Mr. Gates. That's it for this edition of Ask Greater Sapien. Thank you very much for your questions and your participation. Keep them coming, and I will make these as I gain the material to do so. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
That's my job. That's what I do. I don't lose. I win. Is there no one on this planet to even challenge me?
Maybe you came by to congratulate me on last night's victory.